Save our teachers.
Save our schools.
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 I'd like to welcome everybody today to this rally in defense of public education. Thank you all for coming. My name is Brian Chittister. I'm a teacher in Bristol, and I'm here to help rally people because our schools are under the biggest attack I think we've seen, certainly in our lifetimes. So we have a number of speakers today. So to kick things off, I'm going to hand it over to Providence High School teacher Anna Cooperman. Anna, would you like to come up?
Hi, my name's Anna Cooperman. I'm a teacher at Classical High School. And for teachers this year, it's probably been one of the hardest years that any of us can remember. And one of the things that's important to remember is that we're not alone. It's an attack. It's from New York City, where 4,100 teachers have just been laid off, all the way to rural Pennsylvania, where a friend who'd been teaching in an elementary school for 28 years, her school was closing and her job was being moved. And so it's the same story everywhere, right? Budget crisis, closing schools, firing teachers. It's coming from the top. It's from Arne Duncan. He's training our mayors in how to do it. And I think the thing that's important to remember is that it's not just an attack on teachers, and it's an attack on public workers everywhere, like we saw in Wisconsin. But teachers are like the best target, right? I mean, they blame us for the crisis in education, which is real. There is a crisis in education, but it's a crisis that they are creating and making worse with what they are doing. And I think it's incredibly important for us as teachers to say, okay, in Providence, 75% of us, like me, got our jobs back. And so people, are like, whew, okay, we're okay. But we can't be complacent. First of all, because that's 25% of teachers who haven't gotten their jobs back. It's close to 400 teachers right now who are still fired. And next year, they said, yes, you're rehired, but we're not really sure about next year. We reserve the right to do this to you again next year. And so it's incredibly important for us to not be complacent and to be stepping up, standing up, getting active, speaking up, especially those of us who can, who are in those positions that got rescinded. I think that the other thing about complacency is that a lot of people think right now, you know what, there is a terrible budget crisis in this city, right? Forget about the country. In this city, in Providence, there is a budget crisis that they've never, it's, what does he call it? The category 5, blah, 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 that they talk about. And then the idea is, okay, so there's no money, so there's nothing that you can do as teachers except accept it, accept firing, accept a concessionary contract, accept that some of your colleagues are actually going to be at the end of this musical chairs game that these people are playing, at the end of it, that 100 of them will probably be out on the street, that you have to accept that. And what we have to say is that, no, we do not have to accept that. In the 1930s, out of the Depression, that is when the union movement stood up, stepped up, and said, you know what, you beat us back, we were tired, but no more. And the UAW in 1936, out of the Depression, the biggest gains that they ever saw. And that's what we have to think, that if we get organized, that if we step it up, that if we say no, that if we're not scared of them, that we can win some things. And that, yeah. And with that in mind, I just have to say we have to be better organized. I think, today when I was talking about this at lunch with my English department, I said, if we can get 75 people there today, that's like a good start for us today. And I think we did it. I think we've got more than that. So I think we should give ourselves a hand. I think this is a good start. But it's incredibly important for us to get more organized and to be more active within our unions, and to be thinking of creative things that we can be doing to be speaking up and stepping up. And with that, I want to say I'm a member of the Coalition to Defend Public Education. And it's a brand new coalition coalition. We've only met less than 10 times, and I want to encourage everybody who is here. There are people around with sign-up sheets. We're meeting next week. We're showing a movie in the Providence Teachers Union on June 21st. Everybody should come to celebrate the solstice and watch The Inconvenient Truth Behind Waiting for Superman, which I think will, it's a movie about how teachers can step up and fight back. And with that in mind, I'm just going to leave us with a really famous saying, an injury to one is an injury to all, that right now teachers need to be thinking about all of those people who are thinking about whether or not they have a job. We need to be fighting for them.
Whose schools? Whose city? Whose crisis? Their crisis, that's right. Next, I'd like to introduce Hope High School teacher Chris Paraso.
Okay, thanks a lot everyone for coming out. My name is Chris Paraso. I'm a member of the Providence Teachers Union. I'm a member of the Coalition to Defend Public Education. I'm an English teacher at Hope High School. I'm a member of a coalition that formed around one simple idea, and that idea is this: no one is safe. In this educational climate, no one is safe. No one is safe. When a school can be put into intervention status by a district and be threatened with shutdown even when that district finally admits that the school did meet its goals, no one is safe. When a school, several schools are shut down, not for any real perceived lack of performance or anything like that, but simply for the reason of solving a fiscal crisis they had no part in creating, no one is safe. When taxpayers are not told about the mysterious algorithm that's used to decide what schools are in intervention, what schools are going to be shut down, no one is safe. When teachers are told that their input matters and then it's ignored, that they'll be supported when their problems are met with shrugs, and when they're told to act as if they were on an interview every day, as if teaching to students' needs, collaborating with colleagues, answering questions honestly, speaking truth to power, as if these things could ever legitimately be reasons to be dismissed from your position, no one is safe. When student expression is reduced to the bubbles on a standardized test, no one is safe. When a job that was once considered a calling is reduced to a competitive cockfight, no one is safe. When it's assumed by your employer that the only thing that will motivate you is more money, no one is safe. Not schools, not citizens, not students, not parents, and certainly not teachers or any other state workers or any workers in Rhode Island for that matter. Not one of us will be safe until we all come together and stand up for one another as a community and make our demands. Our demands are this: that the powers that be in our state give as much to the students and schools of Providence and the communities that we do every day. We want them to give as much as we give. That's what we want. We don't do it, we don't give this much because we're being watched, or we don't give this much because we're worried about how we're going to look at the next job interview. We do it because it's a calling. That's why we do it. You understand? It's a calling. And now we call on you, politicians, policymakers. We call on you to come to the table in a civil manner and create a just solution for the state's neediest children. We ask you to do this because we ask you to do this with us, the people that are right in front of me. These are the only consultants, the people in front of me. These are the only consultants you should hire to help fix the problem in the schools in Providence. And compared to the corporate interests that are breathing down your neck, I think our rates are pretty cheap. I think we're pretty good. First of all, in all honesty, I want to thank Brian Chedester. I want to thank Anna Cooperman. I just want to tell you that I was one of those teachers that sort of sat down at the school board meeting. I believed in the process. I didn't want to come in sort of yelling. I'm like, oh, these people are yelling. That's kind of, let's just sit down and be polite and see, you know, maybe they'll listen to reason. They don't. They don't. If you were at that April meeting, you're probably as pissed off as I am right now. And if you are, then you should stand up and speak out. Because there's no guilt in fighting for students that need to be advocated for. Because the corporations are not advocating for them. They're advocating for their bottom line. That's what it's about. Are you with me? Yeah! Are you ready to defend public education? Yeah! Thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming out.
Next up, I'd like to ask parent advocate Osiris Harrell to come up. And after Osiris, we will hear from a student.
I'd like to start by saying that this nationwide attack on teachers and blaming teachers for what's wrong in the school system is unjust and it's wrong. This mess began with No Child Left Behind, and then it just morphed and became Race to the Bottom, or to the top, I meant. You know, they come in, you know, and they create all this chaos and confusion in our school system, and they want to blame the teachers for what's wrong. But they have a plan and they have a design. We have to be very vigilant as parents and community people, teachers. We have to pay attention to what's going on in public education. The corporations are slowly trying to take over public education, and we can't allow that to happen. As they're closing schools, you can best believe that they have designs on building more prisons, because they already know what the effect of closing schools and firing teachers and demoralizing teachers and pitting teachers against parents and coming into the community with all of this. It's called ordo ab chaos in Latin, order out of chaos. They bring the chaos, then they come in like they're the knight on a white horse to restore order. And they want to bring all these charter schools, and everybody think that charter schools are the new thing. Charter schools are gonna be what's gonna save, but charter schools, again, is just a push to privatize education. I wonder if anybody is even concerned about the children that will fall through the cracks as a result of what's going on here in Providence this year. This year will impact a lot of children. I've been speaking to parents in the community. There are children that will be going from Bridger Middle School that are in gangs. And they'll be going to school with gang members from other schools that they've had beefs with for a long time. So our children are now being put in harm's way by our mayor. They come to the cities where they feel as though, excuse me. They go to the cities where they feel as though they got a mayor that they can stroke. They may be inexperienced mayors, or they may be ambitious mayors. And they seek those type of mayors out, and they sell them on the idea, and then they shove it down our throats. We can no longer stand for that. We have to stand together, community people, parents, and teachers. We can't be divided. We cannot be divided any longer. I'm looking out there and I see a whole bunch of wonderful teachers. My children went to West Broadway Elementary School, and each teacher in West Broadway Elementary School was excellent teacher, every one of them. There was never a time that I did not go to that school and walk away saying, wow, my children are in good hands. So it's really unjust that those teachers should be faced with losing their jobs. These are wonderful teachers. So again, we have to stand with the teachers, we have to stand with each other, and we have to fight for our schools, we have to fight for our children. So if you're at home, you need to get up off your seats, and we need to join together, and we need to be out here in the trenches fighting for our children. Thank you.
One of the most important things that I think we can do as teachers and as parents is to raise our children and to teach them to be advocates for themselves and to speak out for their rights. And so in that spirit, I'm going to introduce a student who has become, I think in many ways, the spokesperson of Providence students generally, Jonah.
Hello, everybody. Is this what we want, everybody? Is this what we want? No! Do we want our schools closed? No! The whole reason why this mess is happening is because they don't have enough money. When they spend billions of dollars every day on war. If they could just stop war, call off war, try to make friends, they could stop this entire mess and keep things the way it is, and help the economy. Help the world how it is today. So will we fight? Will we fight and fight? Will we fight whenever we can? Will we fight until they agree with our demands? We'll fight and fight whenever we can until they agree with our demand. We'll fight and fight whenever we can until they agree with our demand. We'll fight and fight whenever we can until they agree with our demand. We'll fight and fight whenever we can until they agree with our demand.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our future. I think it's very bright. Next, I'd like to introduce a Hope High School graduate who also went to Harvard. I'd argue perhaps a more well-reasoned, more level-headed graduate of Harvard than others that we may know of in this city, Nick Alaverdian.
Too bad Mayor Tavares wasn't just over by that wire. You know, if he tripped, I think it would have benefited all of us. Too bad it didn't happen. You know, it's amazing to see all the support we have here today, because it's an insult to me to think that teachers that came to work every day when I was in high school at Hope High School would face the guillotine, essentially. Why is that happening? It doesn't make sense. We need to do things that make sense. And cutting the staff in the high school that I adored, even though it got so much bad public reception, makes no sense at all. And the fact that I can be a student at one of the most prestigious universities in America is indicative of the promise that Providence high schools have. Do we want our teachers fired? No! Will we do everything we can to ensure that our teachers can keep the jobs that they deserve? Yes! Are we pumped up? Yes! Are we ready to go? And we will not stop until every teacher is ensured a fair compensation package so that they will come to Providence and stay in Providence to teach the future of Providence. That's Providence's promise. Thank you.
Okay. Next, I have on the list to call up a person who has been very outspoken in defense, not only of teachers, not only of students, but also of the concept of language rights. This is a multiracial, multi-ethnic, multilingual city, and our children are being denied the right to a fair education when they closed down Flint Elementary School that had the only two-way bilingual program. And so I'd like to introduce one of the key people to help run that, Ferdinand.
Hi everyone, my name is Ferdinand Rodriguez. I'm here speaking on behalf of the Rhode Island English Language Learners Coalition. And today being Dress Down Day, I decided to dress up for you guys. Okay, so anyway, let me start with two questions. Who do you think know more about teaching and learning? Our top political leaders at state and local level, or teachers and parents?
Teachers and parents!
Who do you think know more about education? Our law, business-heavy school board, or parents and teachers?
Parents and teachers!
You know, you're a great student, you have an A. And let me tell you something. So why is it that they're making decisions that impact us the most without really asking for our input? They don't want our input, right? Well, the reason is because they can. They have the power. They have the power of the state and the power of the law. But you know what? Who votes them in? We do. And we have the power of the numbers. And if we organize, we eventually we're going to vote them out. We're going to vote out the school board, and we're going to vote out this mayor if he continues this way. So in essence, this is a debate about justice and democracy. Obviously, it's built around education, but it comes down to justice and democracy. Because if our students do not have equal access to education by having their schools closed, then there's no justice in that. And we teachers have to fight for justice. And if the main stakeholders in this debate, teachers and parents and students, are not at the table, then this has to do with the democratic process. So then we had to fight for democracy. So, and you know, I've been speaking to teachers everywhere I go. And teachers tell me, well, we are afraid, we won't fight, I won't fight the system, I want a job, I don't want to be identified with anything that has to do with protest. And you know, I'm afraid too, because if I don't get a job, I'll probably lose my mortgage. You know, but we have a way, we have to find a way to transcend, to go beyond our fears and act. So the question is, so as teachers, we have to ask ourselves some confusing and difficult questions. We have to ask ourselves, do we lead or do we follow? We lead. Because by following, that's why we are in this mess. So we have to ask ourselves, do we become glorified beggars with bachelor's, master's, and advanced degrees, or do we demand professional respect and personal dignity? We have to ask ourselves, do we side with justice and the democratic ideal, or do we let this great country regress into tyranny, intolerance, and insanity? Those are hard questions that we have to pose to ourselves. And we ask our colleagues who are not here today, but who will be here with us if we believe and we continue working. Those colleagues that today are afraid and will not come out, eventually they will, because there's no safe job. Next year, many of those colleagues are going to lose their jobs if we don't stop this. And we have a window of 8 to 10 months to stop this. We have to make sure that we work with parents, that we organize parents, that we go to their living room and meet with them, So that when we call parents, they're going to come out because we have the strength of numbers. We have the strength of numbers and we have reason on our side. So we have to choose to lead, right? And when we choose to lead, we have to think outside of ourselves. We have to put other people's interests first. That means that we have to be talking about equal access to education. We have to be talking about how the communities are being dismembered by closing the public schools. We have to be talking about how home values of many of our parents are going down because the schools are closing. We have to denounce No Child Left Behind and Race to the Top as the culprits for this mess. And you know something? Not one of our leaders has stepped up to the plate to fight that. And we as teachers have to demand that our leaders at every level here in Providence and the state come out and attack that white elephant. Okay. So again, we have, I tell you one thing, if we organize parents, that should be our priority. If we organize parents, when we meet again, it's not going to be 100 of us here. There are going to be thousands of people here, I guarantee you that. Okay? So I leave you with that. I leave you with a commitment to organize parents. Thank you.
El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. So this attack on public education, on public workers, of course, is nationwide and it's statewide. So next I'd like to call up to the microphone the public face of teachers and defending teachers' rights, teachers' pensions, teachers' collective bargaining outside of Providence, Pat Crowley from the NEA.
Thanks, Brian. It's great to see so many friends out here today. It's great to see the videographer who's always around, our famous Commissioner, Deborah Gist. Thanks for coming out here today. You know, I don't know how many people had a chance to see the Commissioner's speech on Wednesday night. You know, she asked us to ask a question as union leaders every day that we had the chance. She wanted us to ask, how's school? So I'm going to ask everyone today, how's school? Well, actually, you know, she almost got the question right. It wasn't how's school that we're supposed to ask. The real question that we are supposed to ask is whose school? Whose school? That's the question that we're supposed to ask. Because, you know, I just met Anna today, and Anna, you're doing a great job organizing this effort and a lot of the other efforts. Brian, I know from his efforts in the NEA down in Bristol Warren, and you guys are great organizers. You deserve a great round of applause. But let me tell you something. From what I've seen recently, what's going on in Cranston, never mind what's going on in Providence, when I hear about an organization called Achievement First and what's going on in this so-called mayoral academy, I really want to know the answer to the question, whose school? Because let me know, when I hear about something called the Charter School Growth Fund, and I hear about how they refer to charter schools in a portfolio and refer to kids as investments and want to know about how they return on those investments. And they actually talk about the return on investments, and they want to talk about how schools perform as if it's some market portfolio. I'm not kidding. Go to the website. This is the language that they talk about our kids, as if you're reading the Wall Street Journal, as if you could talk about test scores and grades, as if it's the stock ticker at the bottom of Fox News. Are you kidding me? Whose schools are they talking about? You know what they're talking about? They're not talking about education. They're talking about money. They're talking about nothing but the bottom line. So I don't want to talk about how's school until we figure out whose school. Because you know what? When we talk about whose school, it's not Wall Street schools. It's not the politicians' schools. It's the people's schools. It's the parents' schools. It's the workers' schools. But more importantly, it's the students' schools. And until we figure out that it's the students' schools and take it back for the students, nothing else matters. And you know what? Earlier this year, there was that movie called Waiting for Superman. And everyone was talking about waiting around for Superman. But I know the people in this audience, no one here is waiting around for anything. Every single day, the people in this crowd are in the trenches doing the work. We don't have the luxury of waiting around for nothing. So if I can leave you with one message here today, waiting around isn't gonna get it done. Leave here today, go out, continue working hard. Anna, Brian, the rest of the organizers, keep fighting. That little man, keep up that energy. Let's keep fighting. Get working, get busy. And I don't want to know how school. I want to know whose school is it. It's our schools. Let's get to work. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
Whose schools? Whose schools? Whose schools? Whose schools? Next up, we have Steve Smith, the president of the Providence Teachers Union.
Just where we all want to be, City Hall on a Friday afternoon. I want to thank Anna, I want to thank Brian, I want to thank the parents that has been working with them nonstop to bring this coalition together. And I say, speaking of Mr. Crowley's comments regarding the commissioner, perhaps it's time to change the location of our little gatherings, and we should go down the street a couple of blocks to the Rhode Island Department of Education. While we certainly have our differences with the mayor, and we are trying to work those out, having spoken Cranston and hearing Mr. Angus Davis talk about the agenda of the unions and the agenda of teachers and the motives. There's agendas and there's motives, but it's not teacher unions' agendas and motives. It's not teachers' agendas and motives. It's the Rhode Island Department of Education's agenda. It's RICAN's agenda. It's the people who watched 1,934 teachers get fired are the same people that are supporting and calling our commissioner Superwoman. This self-promotion, this non-stop self-promotion of our commissioner has to come to an end. We can no longer afford a commissioner who is running for office constantly. She's not an elected official. We have to send her a message. She doesn't have to keep self-promoting. She has to have the interest. And it's not lost on me, I think, certainly anybody here, or members of the General Assembly who may not say it publicly. What was the reason for her to talk about how she respects and values teachers? If you respect and value teachers, you don't have to say it. It's obvious. If you respect and value teachers, you don't watch, stand by idly, and support 1,934 of them fired for no reason. If you respect and value teachers, and it's all about the kids, you don't watch as 5 schools are closed, 4 of which are making progress, students are displaced. You don't stand by and watch that and say, and can you say, I respect and put children first. At the same time, you're promoting a school that nobody wants in Cranston, nobody knows about in Providence. So 900 children who have been displaced out of their neighborhood schools can not only go down the street to another school in their neighborhood, but they have to go to another city. You cannot advocate that and say you have a healthy respect for teachers. You cannot treat teachers as their interchangeable parts. All too often we are compared to an industrial model, these industrial model contracts. Well, I think if you think a teacher with 15 years experience who has dedicated themselves to a district every day for 15 years is the same as someone fresh out of college, and there's no difference and there's no value to those 15 years. Because we don't have an evaluation system, and if it wasn't for the work of the AFT, the RIFT, we wouldn't be close to an evaluation system now. Teachers are not afraid to be evaluated. They want to be evaluated by people who know what they're doing. They want to be evaluated by people who have standing in their school district. You know, our commission is really, you have to give her credit, she's very good, because she can pull it off. On one hand, she says, we don't value seniority. And on the other hand, she wants to hire retired teachers at $500 a day and remove the 90-day cap. I'm not the brightest bulb on the tree, but there's nothing more senior than a retired teacher. No one has more seniority than someone who's retired. Where she could have taken that $500, hire a substitute for a principal, hire a substitute for a teacher who is dedicated to the district, and then you pay and you invest in the people who are doing the job every day. You build institutional knowledge, you get the most bang for your buck. But the only difference is, if she did that, she couldn't pick the teachers. She couldn't pick, or let me say clearer, control. We have to send our commissioner, and let's take her at her word. She wants to have a good relationship with teachers, well then that has to translate into action. Let's forget about paying retirees or handing out patronage jobs at $500 a day for 180 days. Let's invest in the people who are doing the work. Let's do that now. Let's send that message. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and I look forward to further action 2 blocks down the street. Thank you.
What's disgusting? Union busting. What's disgusting?
Union busting.
What's disgusting?
Union busting.
What's disgusting?
Union busting.
Before I call up the last speaker, I'd like to first say, I've been thanked a few times, and thank you for the thanks, but I'd like to thank some people who've done actually, I think, more to organize this struggle and this rally. First and foremost, Pat Smith of the Progressive Network deserves a big round of applause. I'd like to thank a number of the people out there who've been organizing for years, some of the retired teachers who've been very supportive in this struggle. My own local president, Jen Saranen, who sent it out to the Bristol Warren Education Association and has brought a few folks from the burbs. My friend Kevin Ferrier, who first alerted me to the danger of charter schools invading our state and really had a lot of insight into how that goes. And most importantly, the folks that I've come to know and work with in the Coalition to Defend Public Education. There's a whole group of people out there, most of whom do not want to get up and speak publicly. Trust me, I've tried to get them up here. They are fabulous people who've done a tremendous job in organizing this struggle. And if you'd like to join us, please find somebody with a sign-up sheet, please find somebody with a leaflet, and get involved in this struggle and in this grassroots fight. Just a couple of dates that people should keep in mind. Our next meeting for the Coalition to Defend Defend Public Education will be on Tuesday, June 7th at 6 p.m. at Libertalia Space, which is at 280 Broadway. It's in the Viola building. So please come 6 o'clock next Tuesday if you'd like to get involved in the struggle. Please come Thursday, June 9th, to Alvarez High School on Adelaide Street at 6 p.m. That's the next public hearing on the Achievement First charter school that they're going to try to put in Cranston. They're going to try to steal students from Providence, steal students from Cranston, starve both districts of funds, and call it education reform. Please come and speak out against that. It's a very, very bad attack. That's next Thursday, the 9th at 6 p.m. And then finally, folks should know there are leaflets going around. The Coalition to Defend Public Education is going to be putting on a showing of the new film, The Inconvenient Truth Behind Waiting for Superman. If you don't know, this film was made by a group called the Grassroots Education Movement in New York City, a group of ordinary parents and teachers and students who've come together to defend their schools in one of the cities that's had the most sustained attack on public education over the last decade. This is their own grassroots response to the billions of dollars that went into the Waiting for Superman film that tried to put out the charter school kind of reform, quote unquote, corporate reform movement's vision of things. This is our vision, so please come to it June 21st at 6 p.m. at the Providence Teachers Union office on Corliss Street across from the main post office. So with that, I'd like to introduce our last speaker from the Progressive Network, Sam Smith.
Hi, my name is Sam Smith, and I represent the Progressive Network here, and we're glad to have you all come out and defend public education here in Providence. I'm not currently a teacher, and I'm not in a union, but I've been involved in education for 40 years. I started out as a high school and college teacher, but now I've been involved in college admissions for the last 30 years. I'm very concerned with the attacks on public education here in Providence, across Rhode Island, and throughout the United States. There is a hidden agenda in these attacks. Americans are convinced that public schools are failing, that teachers' unions protect bad teachers, that collective bargaining rips off taxpayers, that maybe they can be convinced that the only solution is to bring in private corporations who are going to turn around these schools, get rid of the ineffective teachers, and save taxpayers money. But before you know what's happening, the money which should have gone to public education is now going to go to private companies. These private companies are going to come in with their own agendas, their own curriculum, they're going to hire their own staffs, and they're not going to be at all accountable to the local communities. This is the pattern we've seen before in the healthcare system, in the prison system, and in the military. And if you think about private contractors that are now over in Iraq and Afghanistan, do you think they're doing a better job of protecting the country and providing services than the military did? What they did there, what they did in the prison systems, are now going to go and say, what's the last big pool of money? Public education. Let's go after that. So I feel this attack really started in Central Falls when Commissioner Gist looked at that community and said, here's a group of students and parents who are economically challenged, who are outside the system. Let's go after them first. It's always a good strategy to go after the weakest first. Now they're going to take on Providence and the largest teachers union in this state. And if they can destroy this union by closing neighborhood schools, which incidentally are once again in some of the poorest neighborhoods in the city, and if they can fire all the teachers, then they're going to use these same tactics to go after every teachers union in this state. What happens here, every teachers union is going to have a contract coming up in the next 2 or 3 years. This is going to be the sample. It's just going to spread. So we have to stop it right here, right now, today in Providence. So we've been told by Mayor Tavares and the Providence School Board that they have to close the neighborhood schools and fire the teachers because they didn't have any choice. Just like Jonah said, we're out of money. What can we do? But this is just a smokescreen. They know that if they can scapegoat teachers for saying it's a bad tenure system, it protects ineffective teachers, but really they're after seniority, they're after pensions, they're after benefits, and they're after collective bargaining. Basically, they just want to destroy the union. But really, these union busters aren't really concerned about your education. They're not concerned about our kids. The corporate elite just wants control. They would be willing, somehow, they think they can find, as Jonas says, trillions of money in the budget to pay for wars. They can find monies to bail out banks. They can find monies to give tax breaks for rich Americans, and they can give corporate benefits to people. But somehow when it comes to working Americans, the working poor and average people, there's no money left. So now we're faced with a charter school system. When charter schools were set up, I think the basic idea is these are going to be laboratories where we're going to go in and try out new things. Then they're going to take whatever works and bring them back into the public schools. But that's really not what's working out. The truth is that students in charter schools aren't doing any better than the students are in public schools. You know, they try to come up with these fake statistics to say, oh, they're doing so much better. But let me tell you, I've been in college admissions for 30 years. I'm probably one of the few people in this crowd that's gone to every public high school in Rhode Island over the last 30 years, and I've been to many charter schools. And when I look at the applications which come across my desk as they apply to college, I can tell you that students in charter schools in Rhode Island aren't doing any better than the students in public schools. There are a few charter schools which tend to do better, but the ones that do better, because they skim off the most involved students and they skim off the parents who are the most involved. But the regular charter schools aren't doing any better, and many times are doing worse. Now, the newest ploy are these mayoral academies. Basically, it's just private companies who are going to come in and try to replace public schools. How are they going to save money? They're not going to have to hire teachers at the same salaries. They don't have to pay them benefits. They don't have to pay into the state insurance systems. And they're going to take the money, which should go into the public school system, and give it to a private corporation, which has no relationship at all to our local communities.